I'd like to welcome everyone to the September 2014 Board of Social Services meeting. Welcome to those in the audience and those who may be viewing us from home. I'd like to call the meeting to order. And if we could observe a silent moment of a moment of silent prayer or silent mediation. Okay. First order of business is public comments. Ms. Elliott, do we have anyone?
We have none.
Okay, we have no one signed up to speak, so next we would look to adopt or revise today's agenda.
Madam Chairman, I move we approve the agenda as presented if there are no other comments or
No changes you need to make?
A second.
Okay. Well, it's been duly motioned and seconded. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Okay, and then next we have the minutes of the previous meeting in your packet.
Move
Any-
approval with corrections, if any.
Okay, so duly moved by Ms. Perkins and seconded by Mr. James. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, okay. And then next, we have sort of changed our agenda layout this time. Ms. Elliott, if you'd like to sort of address that and then move into the first round of items.
Okay. In looking at the agenda, we decided we needed to be moving more towards consent items, report items, decision items, and discussion items. And so that is, we have adjusted our agenda so it looks like that. And then there's some information for the from the board, or for the board, that may or may not need to be discussed. So that's in your packet. If you want to discuss those things, certainly raise those issues. The first thing, obviously, is the budget amendments, and this is a consent item, so I don't know if anybody has any questions for Angela. And I'll turn it back over.
If there are no questions on that item, I'll take a motion to approve the budget amendment.
So moved.
Second.
And with these budget amendments, for the viewing audience, these actually went to the county commissioners on yesterday's agenda?
These actually went yesterday's agenda, so one is a crisis intervention budget amendment, and one is a child care budget amendment, and they were both done yesterday at the commissioners' meeting,
And approved.
and approved,
Okay.
yes.
And so typically, we would have met ahead of that meeting, but we weren't able to in this instance. So in the essence of time, they went to the commissioners ahead of the DSS board. So, Mary, you moved to approve them, and Mr. James was the second. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, then we move into report items. Our first item is daycare changes. Ms. Kathy Parker.
Good afternoon. I wanted to tell you about some legislative changes that are coming to the subsidy program. And the first change we have is October the 1st. All parents will be required to pay a 10% parent fee or copay based on their monthly income. And parents pay a portion of their daycare each month, and then the daycare bills us for the remainder. In the past, some cases paid 9% or 8%, or some cases paid a partial fee based on the fact they used it for partial days. But now, everybody will pay 10% of their gross monthly income. Also, another change coming October the 1st is our income eligibility tables. These have gone down, and we will be using these to determine eligibility. Also, we have two separate income tables, one for children 0 to 5 and one for children 6 to 12. So it could be that the family's eligible for one child based on the income eligibility tables for one group of children and not eligible for the other child. And these are taken October the 1st. And we have made the daycare providers aware, and they are helping make the parents aware, and we were getting out our changes. We are doing those every day to let the parents know what their new copay will be. Then effective January the 1st, the definition of the income unit has changed, will be changing for some cases. In the past, relative cases, which were like grandmothers, grandfathers, aunts, or uncles, they didn't have to pay a parent fee. Their income wasn't included and counted in the budget. And effective January the 1st, their income will be counted and they will be assessed a parent fee. Also, step-parents who are in the home. In the past, if it was not their biological child, then their income wasn't counted. So now their income will be counted in the income unit, and they'll have to meet the income table guidelines, and they'll be assessed a parent B. Any questions?
I'd like to make a comment. How are you reaching all these mothers, fathers, grandmothers? Because a lot of these kids, of course, are staying with their grandparents and aunts and uncles. And I know a lot of them are not educated. A lot of them can't read probably. How are you reaching them to know that they're staying within the guidelines? I know you said that you met with them some, but there's a lot of them. Are you reaching all of them?
Well, there have been service announcements on TV. Actually, I caught one the other morning on TV. And our daycare providers are one of our biggest sources because they see these grandparents every day when they pick and drop off and pick up the children. So they are helping telling them what's going on.
All right. And in other words, like this new money that we got, $500,000, which of course will increase the number of children that we have in daycare. And I know that you said that we still have about 900 or something like that you. How, and I think I asked the question yesterday, how many more do we have? What percentage of them? But are these, how are you notifying these? Do you have a record of those?
Okay, we have, for all, if you're talking about the folks that are on the waiting list.
Yes.
We have, Kathy's staff have a list of all the folks who have put their name on the waiting list. And as funds become available and slots become available, they contact the folks and have them then assessed to determine if they do in fact qualify and go from there to get them enrolled. And then periodically they work the waiting list, as I understand it, to make sure folks still want to be on the waiting list. So there are two contacts made in that respect.
Well, we want to make sure they understand, that has been one of the big problems that I've had in the past is daycare. We met out at Philippi Church pertaining to this. We had the people from Raleigh that come down, and the people that were involved primarily were those daycare operators.
Right.
And so we want to make sure that they are, Kathy, informed, kept up to date as to what is taking place. Well, I would appreciate it anyway if
Right.
that was.
Right.
We've sent all the daycare providers a letter, and as we talk to them daily on the phone regarding child care issues, we reiterate what was sent in the memo to them, what's
Right.
going to happen.
And a copy of that packet that was sent to the providers is in your handouts today.
Right.
So you have that information.
So you feel like they understand what these new rules and regulations, what they are?
Yes, sir, because I talk to
That's
them
good.
daily, and they're understanding what's going on, and I've reaffirmed to what we've already sent out to them.
And as I understand it, a lot of the parents have already called that are having the new fee changes, are already starting to call to talk about that
Yeah.
with the staff.
Miss Becky?
I think Mary's
Ms.
hand
Williams.
was first.
Yeah.
Okay.
I wanted to know, with the grandparent fee, and you said it's based on income of the grandparent?
Yes, ma'am.
And so, whereas in the case of maybe a protective child just dropped on her, that she is going to look out for that child, then she becomes part of having to pay a fee?
Well, those cases that come through protective services, which we call them child welfare cases, that code still does not count income. But at which point that case closes further on down the line and it goes to like working grandparent, then we would have to count the income.
That would be everybody that lives in that household, wouldn't it?
It would be, I'll let Kathy explain how they do the income. It's a little complicated.
But everybody that live in that household, their income would be included in that particular one, I thought.
Well, for daycare's a little bit different than other programs. My understanding, because this rule comes into effect in January, it would be just the grandparents' income. Like if there's other adult children, we wouldn't count their income. But for like if it's grandma, granddaddy, another adult child, and a grandparent, it would just be the grandparent's income that would count, and any income for the child, like child support. Now, cases where there's a stepfather or step-parent in the house, that income will start counting come January.
Well, how is that different from food stamps?
In the food stamp household, everybody who's partaking
In that
in
household?
that household, their income has to count in the
Yeah.
food stamp program. There are a few exceptions, but that's generally the way it does with food stamps. Daycare is looking a little differently at the income units that they have to count, the budget
Okay,
units.
all right. Okay.
Kathy, I think that answered my question, but just really for my old-timey update, if a parent is living in a common law relationship, is that parent, or rather that, whatever common law, is that considered in the amount of income?
As of now, that hasn't changed. If both parents are in the household, regarding whether they're married or not, both incomes count.
Okay.
Any more questions? Thank you, Kathy.
All right, thank you.
I think the next item is an NC Fast update, Brian Averett. And Sharon, I didn't mean to, Kathy, did Sharon Alexander have anything else to add? Just making sure.
Good afternoon. Before I talk about our Medicaid applications project, which is part of NC Fast, I would like to update you on,
I want you to speak up.
Yeah, we
can
I
you hear me
second the
now?
motion.
Can you hear me now?
Is the mic on?
Yes. I'd like to update you on the next implementation of the NC Fast case management system. On November 3rd, we'll have the NC Fast hard launch, and what that means is that from November 3rd forward, all Medicaid reviews will be completed in the NC Fast case management system. This is the last component of the Food and Nutrition Services and Medicaid programs in NC Fast. What we are doing in preparation for this, we've had training ongoing with the staff. There is refresher training now in 5 areas of NC Fast navigation, modified adjusted gross income budgeting, Work First program, retroactive Medicaid and deductibles, and long-term care Medicaid. The supervisors have identified employees who need this training, and they have been scheduled and are registered for the specific for their specific training needs. Also, the cross-training piece of it, 3 of our lead workers are working with employees, helping them train with active cases and learning how to put the program area that they're not familiar with working in into the NC Fast system. The NC Fast case management system, the process is pretty much the same, but it's the policy of the programs that differs. So they're working on the cross-training piece. So we're working ahead to try to get everybody the training that's needed before this implementation takes place. Now we'll take a look at the figures for the Medicaid project, and this is sort of an update from our previous meeting where in August, where we showed where we are, the progress that had been made on the Medicaid applications. As of Friday, we had 182 Medicaid applications past due. The staff has done a tremendous job, the case workers, the supervisors, everybody working together on this project, and we are very close to being in compliance and having the applications, Medicaid applications, current. And you can see we started on May 30th with the first, in the first column, the first 2 rows, the 1,952 and the 661, there were 2,613 past due at that time. That's down to 182 now, and we are appreciative of all the work that the staff has done, and we're about where we need to be with it, and we want to keep it there. So I'll be glad to answer any questions you have.
How about the overtime? How does it stand? Do we continue to have overtime, or have we reached that stage that we do not have to have these people?
Well, we have been approved for overtime because of the special projects, and there's another project, the redeterminations, that Ms. Elliott's going to talk about in her presentation next, and she'll talk about overtime related to that, but there was overtime approved for this project so we could get it done and get it brought into compliance.
Do you think we're going to reach that stage when we will not have to have overtime, or we're going to get up to date? What do you think
Yeah,
about that?
at some
Brian?
point in time, we will. Now, with food and nutrition services, that's stabilized. We got that program where it needs to be, and we're keeping that current. So this is another piece of it. We're about where we need to be with this. And as the staff are trained, the new people that are being brought in, along with the existing staff, once we get everybody in place and people are trained, then at that point, then the need for overtime should be diminished.
All right, in your department, in your section, on the NC Fast, of course, how are most of your employees now beginning to be able to do both the Medicaid and the food stamps?
They
or
are,
crossover?
we're still doing more training with the review staff. They're the ones that are, the lead workers are working with them one-on-one and getting them cross-trained. But in the intake part of NC Fast, they're taking applications, the ones that are doing intake and processing the applications are doing all programs.
All right, how is Pitt Community College, are they still involved in training and helping us train these people for the crossover?
They will be, once the class is established, we will have people, as they come in, as they're hired, will be a part of that class, yes.
So we are staying
We are working
involved
with
in
them.
that for the future?
Yes, we are.
Okay.
I would like to know if overtime is mandatory.
There is some mandatory overtime, but there's flexibility allowed with it. If it works better for you to work early in the day and later in the evening, we have supervisors available, so people can do that. If people would rather work on a Saturday and not work in the evenings, they can do that. So there's a lot of flexibility with it, so people with families or other obligations can still meet them and get the time done.
Okay, because I was concerned about if overtime was mandatory, and in the past, we did have some complaint about overtime, and they couldn't go to their personal things with their family because of the mandatory
Right, they have-
overtime.
they,
But it's an adjusted overtime.
Correct. There's flexibility in it, so they can choose what hours they want to work during the week. And people, of course, they got their vacations during the summer. They were approved for that. So there has been a lot of flexibility in it. And that's working well.
And what you call a mandatory, how many hours?
8
a day?
hours per week.
Okay.
And Brian, I think what's important to me is as we increase our numbers of employees in each of one of these fields, that should eliminate the overtime.
That's correct. That's
Okay,
correct.
all right.
Is this, last month, we approved 28 new personnel. Are those people the ones that would be involved in this?
Well, ongoing, yes. 9 of those people will be starting on Monday, the 15th. So the first wave we've got we're ready to go with on Monday. So
So
as we
have
go
approved
forward.
added personnel as of last month?
Correct. And there are certain things like with the review project that Ms. Elliott's going to talk about, there's certain things, even though they can't complete a whole case, there's certain tasks that we can involve them in as part of their training to assist the workers that are working on the reviews.
All right, those 10 people that's going to start Monday, have they already been trained, and are they ready to take and to start doing their job, or are you gonna have to train them?
We're
and
going
give
to
them
have to do a lot of training with them, although some of them have worked with us previously in a temporary capacity and already, like I know 2 of them were doing food and nutrition services reviews when they worked with us in a temporary capacity. 1 of them was doing Medicaid reviews, so they have varying degrees of experience, but in large part, there will be training required.
Okay.
Thank you, Brian. Next, we have items for decision, eligibility solutions contract. Ms. Elliott.
And this is sort of building on what Brian was talking about. And, you know, we're talking about the folks that are starting on Monday. They have some training, but they're not gonna be able to hit the ground running. They're not gonna be a fully trained group of people. So it's gonna take us a while to phase in all of these people and get them fully trained. So just as a backdrop for that. Because we've been focusing so much on applications, and I know each month, Brian has provided you with a document that says a productivity report, and that productivity report has talked a little bit about the reviews. We didn't do that this month because we're sort of transitioning. But that productivity report has talked about the number of reviews and applications that still need to be processed each month. In looking, as we focused on the applications, the state has allowed us to not do reviews. What they've been doing, they got a waiver from the federal government to allow us to not do reviews until December 31. Those people rolled their eligibility period rolled forward each month, okay? So on December 31, all these folks that we've been rolling their eligibility period forward on will now have to be processed, and they have to be processed prior to December 31, or their eligibility will end, okay? So as we've looked at the numbers that we're talking about to be served, we recognize that we have over 11,000 reviews that need to be done between August 1 and December 31. The number of staff we have obviously cannot do that many reviews, and you will look at page 13 and 14 in your package to kind of see some of the documentation we got. And so what we are proposing to catch this up, and we will be needing to go to the commissioners for their September 22nd meeting to get this done as far as the money part of it and the contract part. But what we're proposing is, number one, we're putting staff back on paid overtime. We hope to have them out of paid overtime by the end of the year. That's my goal. No more paid overtime after December 31. Earlier if we can do it. But putting staff back on paid overtime, we want to bring some of our retirees and folks who've worked with us in the past in as part-time people to man the phones, because right now staff are being interrupted so much with questions from phone calls that they have to stop what they're doing and start back up. We had pulled some people from the units to man those phones, but that means they're not out on the floor working. So with minimal training, you could answer the phone and look something up and answer a question. So that seemed like something we could do to give folks some uninterrupted time to get these reviews processed. That we estimate would cost us about $27,700 to do that. The overtime we estimate will cost us about $35,000. We have been using Eligibility Solutions. At times they've been called Vanguard. That's a division of Vanguard. Eligibility Solutions has been doing some of our reviews and for us in both food stamps and in Medicaid. We would propose to do another contract with them to pick up about 50% of the reviews that we need to get done. That would cost us about $135,000. And then, of course, continuing the cross-training of the new staff and getting the new hires up to speed as quickly as we can. So those are our proposals on how to catch the reviews up so that December 31, we will be on target, on track, and current with everything. Yes, sir.
That's good. How much of this these amounts of money, 35,000, 27,000, 135,000, how much of that will be county money and how much of that will be money that we can use that we're obtaining from the state
Right.
and the federal government?
Right, and you're right on target, because that was the next step.
Oh, it was.
What we're
sorry.
gonna do, we have, because it's taken us longer to get the staff on board, there is some lapsed salary money in our budget, and that's what we would use to pay for this, and that would be reimbursed at 75%. Exactly the same as the staff, had they been on board, would have been reimbursed. So we would get 75% federal funding, 25% county funding, which is how it's been budgeted anyway. So
Yeah.
there'd be no loss of revenues from that standpoint.
So it's not putting the county commissions to the, okay.
No,
No need for
nothing, no
additional
new
county
monies.
Right. We
No
want
new
to-
monies, okay?
Right.
Now, if we don't do something like this, all the cases would close January 1, and so you'd have
Have to do
all
it.
these people that would need Medicaid reapplications, and they, people wouldn't be getting paid, the providers, et cetera. So it's really critical that we do this. Also, we need to remember that the hard launch that Brian mentioned is November 3rd, and we want everything up to date and ready for that. And the Affordable Care Act comes back on November the 15th, so we'll start getting applications through that process again. And if you remember, that sort of caused some of our backlog last year. So just, those are some of the issues, things to think about, and we need from you authority to go forward. We have, I will say, authority to go forward on the contract. We have already got the staff in answering the phones. They started this last week. And we have, starting this week, started the overtime because we've worked with the county manager on that,
So you want us to make a motion pertaining to
the contract.
contract?
That's what we need.
Madam Chairman, I move that we approve the contract that is being presented to us.
And I'll second it.
Okay, it's been moved and it's been seconded. Any further questions?
Let me ask this, this is something we just about got to do, is it?
We've about got to, because the consequences of not doing it
I have
would
no
be
other questions.
a problem.
Okay. So it's been properly moved and seconded. All in favor, say aye. Okay, you have your
Thank you.
marching.
Thank you.
The next item on our agenda is an item for discussion, and we've been discussing holding a board retreat. We've been looking at some dates, and this would be in lieu of a formal October meeting. Okay, do you want to?
Yeah, I can do that. Based on polling of the board, October 13th, which is our regular board meeting date, would be the date that we would hold our retreat. It will be at the Best Western out there near Hasty Forward. We would be starting at 9 in the morning. We would break for lunch, and the goal would be to be through by 4, maybe even earlier if we get a lot accomplished. We will have some staff there. We have given you, last meeting, and I think again in today's packet, a draft agenda for that retreat. And wanted to make sure that we had on here the things that you wanted us to cover, or if we need to make any adjustments to that. So wanted to talk a little bit about the retreat. And so what I'll do is kind of run through the agenda. Y'all can add, subtract, whatever you want to do. Thought that for the whole group to be on the same page, a good introduction and discussion about what social services does and who our primary community partners are, so that we could talk about all the different things we do together. We thought that another thing would be talking about the board responsibilities, roles, functions of the board, and then ask the board about how they want to evaluate their performance, because we need to evaluate how we're doing and if we're doing things we need to be doing as a board. A lot of boards have also adopted a code of conduct and wanted to talk about whether this board wanted to do that or not as part of our agenda.
Do you have a sample one?
We do, and actually you have it already. There's a packet. There is everybody has a copy of this resource
It's in that-
manual,
in that,
and it's in
okay.
here. Everything we're talking about is in here. And this agenda is typical of an agenda I've done with other boards for social services in my other life. And then talking about meeting dates. Do we want to stay on the same meeting date in January when we start looking around? Because as you know, many times or several times we have to change dates because of the commissioners' meetings after holidays and things, so it'd be a good opportunity to talk about that. And then the afternoon would be spent totally talking about what the board's goals are, objectives, department goals, performance measures, get y'all's input, get you thinking about that kind of thing, giving us some guidance. Good discussion back and forth, I'm hoping. It's not, it's a good dialogue. Some of the staff would be there for part of that discussion in the afternoon. Staff will definitely be there for the morning part. But some of the things that I have used in the past are what does success look like to the board? What do you think citizens want to know? What are the priorities from your perspective? And then some time talking about my annual plan of work and what you have in mind from that standpoint, and I've even done a draft for you, but I feel certain you'll want to make some changes to it. So that's sort of the framework of this from our thinking and from prior experience with other boards. You will see a lot of that in this handbook because I am not above borrowing from other people and have used this handbook before. What do y'all want to have at this retreat? Because it's your retreat. This was just to get you started. What do you want to have is my question, so we can make sure we're covering the right things.
Well, I personally would like to have, I know that Margaret Dixon has been so good, and I missed that opportunity to praise her at the last meeting. I went to visit her in her office, and we had a nice discussion, and she even gave me a copy of a survey that was done with her staff. And I think that would be very helpful, in my opinion, as part of my position, is supporting the staff to be able to get the work done. And I think it'd be nice for us to have input of that kind of information, that the staff can feel that we've heard what their recommendations are, because they're the ones on the front line.
I'd like to know the reception if a board member does visit an office and how it's received, because there has been feedback of hostility, so I'm concerned about that.
Okay.
Well, I can speak to that. The one place I've been to, just not into offices, but I have received an open invitation to visit with, from Margaret's.
Never.
Person.
I've never received it all my time on the board.
So good, we need to have that discussion, it sounds
I've
like.
never received
I
it
have
from
received-
any staff
I
or
have felt very
supervisor.
welcome, and from people on this board even. So I appreciate, as a matter of fact, I just don't know. I
I've
know.
never received it
Yeah.
as a board member all my time on the board. And when I have taken community people to the division over there, they said I was meddling. And all I did was just took people there to be served. And I sat in the waiting room. Now, there were a couple of people that I did know that I did stop by to say hello, but other than that, I got negative feedback. So the reception is different depending on who the board member is. I just wanted you to know that.
Well, I have not personally had received a schedule of when, a supervisor's meeting would be. However, I know I have felt open to it, to come, and of course, I wouldn't want to come in and sit down and take control of a meeting. I'd want to come in and be the listener. And and I'm looking forward to doing that.
I've never been invited.
So,
Well, it's not a matter of being invited. I have gone in, and I have, I've asked what the possibilities were. So, and I think sometimes we need to take that step and make ourselves available rather than sitting back and waiting for someone to come to us.
I've been at the board over there when they did have supervisors meetings, and I was told that I could not come in. And the supervisor came out to greet me. So, and I was not invited in, so there is, what I'm saying is there has been a difference depending on who the board member is. And
Well, it
the
could
question
be-
wasn't answered as to
One
what it
point
was.
could be that even in this situation, we have open meetings, and then there are other portions that are closed meetings. And so that could be part of it. I have no idea, but I think we should give people the benefit of the doubt.
It sounds
just
like this will be a good discussion for our board meeting in our retreat, to talk about
Well,
the
I just, you know, I was
opportunities and
just
how, yeah,
saying
exactly.
what my reception has been, and I brought it up because yours has been different than mine, so
Sounds
I'm not,
like
you
this
know,
is a good
whatever,
discussion
but
to
that's
have.
a good discussion for it.
And I think it's a new day. It's a new day. It's a new board, it's a new director, and all of us bring different skill sets. You know, Becky has 30 years of working with them. She walks through the building and she knows every second person. I had 20 years with the county, so everybody on that side, except for the lady in the black shirt, I knew by name because so I think how you are perceived when you come in the building varies based on your history. You know, Mr. James, you've been around
Long
Pitt
time.
County a long time, so.
He probably taught half the staff, didn't he?
There is that.
A lot
So,
of 'em.
but I do think with the new director, we have a chance to improve board staff, board, that whole relationship, Mary, so that you don't feel.
I really think that, respect should be given each board member, no matter who
Absolutely.
they are. And I certainly also want to say that, you can't totally forget past when you gotta have a foundation for which to build. So, you have to eliminate some of that in order to go forward in a positive manner.
Go ahead, Becky.
I'm finished with that issue.
All right. First, I would like very much at this retreat to have somebody to represent the county. The finance officer or somebody, Scott, if we possibly can. Right. I think we work together. We have to. And as far as the staff is concerned, I don't feel like, Mary, I'm here, I don't feel like I got asked to be invited. I'm one of them. And my goal is to do whatever that I can to make it a better social service department, that it's more acceptable to the citizens of Pitt County, and that we serve our people the best that we can do. And I don't want to intrude, you know, I've got a big mouth, I say what I believe, and sometimes it's good, sometimes it's not good. But I'm sincere in what I do. Yeah, you got the hammer, that's good too. But, and I think, as somebody's already said, this is a new day, completely. New administration, now's the time for us to get on the right road, to stay on it. I really believe that, Jane, and I think we got the person that can lead us down that road, and I'm looking forward to it. And my goal is that when I leave this board, it's going to be down that road that it ought to be. And that a lot of people will be happy. And when I say a lot of people, that means our employees, our staff. And they are very important. And what do we expect from them? We expect a good job. That's what we want. And we want to support them. Well, I do, and I think every member on that board, I won't be on that, but I'm sure Mary will want to, who's on that will support this board and what we recommend to take and for the future of it.
Move forward.
I really believe that, and I think, but the main thing right now, we're on a new day.
That's right.
We can chart that course now, and I hope that we have input, not only from him, but we have it from Scott and his administration, his leadership, that this right? Is this the way for us to go? Because let's face it, we got to get money. You don't do it without it. So we got to work together and make sure we succeed. That's it. I'm looking forward to it.
So then,
And her gonna be there.
we're all in agreement to hold this meeting on October 13th, on a Monday, starting at 9 o'clock at the Best Western over at 264 and 10th, or Greenwood Boulevard and 10th. Okay, and Mr. Manager, you heard that we would like some of your staff to participate. So then I think you go forward and put it
So the
together.
agenda's pretty much what we want there.
And back to the manual, does Coral have one of those
Yes.
yet? That,
Yes,
I'm not sure, is that the little red, is that my?
Okay.
we'll get it.
because I know the rest of the board got it
Yeah,
a year
I
or so
know
ago
she's got
when
one.
the county attorney prepared it for us.
Is
Yeah,
that what the,
it's
it
good.
was one of the things I emailed you way back in the,
Okay, let me double check and.
She's got Robert Rules of Order in there too, and I like that.
Okay.
Thank you.
If you want to stop by on your way out today, she can probably give it to you, so you'll have a hard copy. Right,
Okay.
that way you won't have to bring it.
But I may have at the house. If I do, I'll return the extra one to you.
All righty.
Okay.
We're good to go on that one. And the last item on the agenda is,
Can
oh, sure, go
stop
ahead.
one thing? Part of this discussion too is that the Social Services Institute is coming up, and that also is part of board member training. So we have put at your place, the agenda, the workshops, that kind of thing. If anybody from the board wants to go, they need to get in touch with me very quickly. You've got the dates. It's October 22nd is when it starts. It's in Hickory, it ends on the 24th. You can see there's new board member training, there's meetings for the board, that kind of thing. If any of y'all are interested in going, get in touch with me.
Does it typically
quickly.
rotate around? Is it always in Hickory?
It's gonna be in Hickory the next 3 years.
Okay.
And this is the only training dates that the state's offering for new board members. And other board members, certainly besides new board members, can come. So just let me know if you want to go and do the workshop piece.
How can Pitt County get it?
How can Pitt County, well, I will tell you.
We like to bring people to Pitt County to show them the place.
Here's what I did. I had a visit from one of the hotels here in town who happens to be near the convention center, who was talking about making sure that we got our name out there.
Right.
So I have forwarded her information to the lady who's responsible for doing this. They currently have a 3-year contract in Hickory, but if this place is big enough, if the convention center's big enough and the hotel, then they are gonna be looking
Good,
and having contact.
good.
I haven't gone a number of years, Eugene. I haven't seen a facility here that is compatible to what they have
They have
there
1,000
and what
plus
the
that-
needs are. The different little separate rooms, it doesn't exist here for the different sessions, meeting room.
Got
And
a lot of
having-
motels here. I don't know about the convention, what the convention center would
Well,
take.
anyway,
How
we-
big is how big is that window? That's
It
big
is,
girl.
it is large, especially in Hickory, and they have a lot of different rooms where they can have the different
Oh,
sessions.
we got all
one
these
at a time.
motels and rooms.
So,
Our convention center is being expanded with
That's-
additional breakout rooms, and it's been totally renovated within. So I think I've been to Hickory's facility, ours will be, I think it is now, but I think when it's finished, it'll be superior to Hickory's.
right, and so, again, we put the people in touch so that
In the
hopefully
future, maybe we can.
that would be
rotation.
something.
Scott, could we get all that information and get it to her if we possibly could, so that,
All of them, so
good, that would be wonderful.
Well, I can tell you, this is one board member that needs to go, so,
Get with me and we'll get it signed, get you signed up.
okay, thank you.
That's it then.
Okay, then the last section is information from the board. Do you all have questions for Ms. Elliott relative to agency personnel, technology, telephone, integrity, anything you want her to highlight? Jan, anything you saw on there that caught your attention that you think is particularly?
I do, you made me think of maybe one other thing that we could discuss at this retreat is, I'm interested in the technology that the staff has access to. I'm wondering just how updated it is and how much of a need it meets, or do we need to look at that?
And you can look at, there is a technology report in this particular packet. It is a very brief report because it's just updating on specific projects. But there are some projects that are ongoing related to technology here. Clearly, technology is something we need to be exploring and doing more with. So that is definitely on my agenda. In fact, it's one of the things I put in my work plan that y'all will hear about later. at the retreat. The only thing I wanted to point out to you as far as, the documents that you have, we passed out an updated vacancy report that's different than the one that's in your packet. And just wanted to let you know that since our last meeting, you can see we have filled significant numbers of positions, because we had a huge number of vacancies, and we are getting them filled. We are either advertising or have filled all but a few positions, and so we're interviewing like crazy. So they're coming right along, and I wanted for you to see, Phil, since the last meeting, it's 1, 2, 6. There's probably like 16 that have been filled since the last meeting, 15 or 16. So that's a significant number of folks that they have gotten on board.
And your first, basically 1/3, start next Monday.
Start Monday,
And then the
right.
next plan for the second third is?
Would be to come on board November,
Okay.
so.
Madam
I'm
Chairman,
glad to see the less amount of frozen position, because we've had a lot of frozen position in the past.
So the goal is January, we'd be fully
Fully
staffed
staffed.
and fully
Yes.
current.
Fully staffed and fully current. We did lose the contract with Brody Center for our one eligibility position over there. So the person will be moving in-house and take one of the vacant positions that we have. So that will be a lost position in the full
Scheme.
thing, yeah. Yes, sir.
let me say this to you, Jane. We are so glad that you've decided to move here to Pitt County, too. A lot of people didn't realize that, and we thank you for that, and we thank you for coming to Pitt County, and everything that I hear is good.
Thank you, sir.
And we're proud of you and your staff for what you're doing.
A lot of
Thank
hard
you.
work.
We even got new seating up here, haven't we, Eugene?
Yeah, I took notice of that. They put me down here all the way on the end. It's pretty nice, though. At least it didn't
I
separate
measured
me.
my arm, Mr. James. Anything else?
I do. I just have a comment. It's more like a happygram, and I can tell you what happened was I had taken a trip last month and in August, and I carried with me my little paperback book, the DSS, that I thought I could read on the plane. And I did start to read it on the plane, and then I got sleepy, and I put it in the pocket in front of me. And when it was time to get off the plane, I'd completely forgotten it was there, and got up and got my overhead baggage, and off the plane I went. And it wasn't until I was halfway to where I was going on the shuttle bus that I realized what I had forgotten. And I thought, oh, well, it's gone now. And a couple weeks later, I received an email forwarded from Gwendolyn, from a flight attendant who had discovered it on a later flight. An earlier attendant had put it in a lost and found compartment somewhere. And this later attendant found my book, and she went to all the trouble to track me down through Gwen, who let her know that, yes, it was me. And I was able to make contact between us through the email and then by telephone. We had the most wonderful telephone visit. And I owe it all to Gwendolyn for helping her solve that mystery. Now my book is a little worse for wear. It's got a little, somewhere in the compartment, it got some coffee around the edges, but it's still readable. And I don't have an excuse not to finish my reading again. So thank you so much to Gwendolyn for helping me out there.
Mr. James?
Nope, I'm ready to go.
Oh, is there a motion to adjourn in order? Thank you. I second.
All right, so moved. We are adjourned until October 13th and the retreat.